On the map of New Mexico, these small towns may look like ordinary dots scattered across a vast desert. But some of these places hold stories that are anything but ordinary. There is a mining town suddenly abandoned after a deadly explosion killed hundreds of miners. There is an old village where Wild West gunfights once erupted right on its main street. And there is also a town along US Route 66 that was once busy with travelers, before slowly turning into a ghost town. Today, what remains are old buildings, empty roads, and a history that still feels heavy in the air. From remote mountains to silent deserts, these are the 15 creepiest small towns in New Mexico. Hidden deep in the rugged mountains of western New Mexico, Mogollon feels more like a place forgotten by time than an ordinary small town. This remote mining town sits high in the Mogollon Mountains, and in the late 19th century, it once thrived during a booming silver mining era. At its peak, more than 3,000 people lived in this narrow valley, all arriving with hopes of finding fortune beneath the earth. But like many mining boom towns during the Wild West era, that prosperity did not last long. When the mining industry began to decline in the mid-20th century, most residents left the town behind. Today, only a handful of people still live there. Old wooden buildings cling to the steep hillsides, including the Silver Creek Inn, a historic inn often rumored to be haunted. After leaving the quiet mountains around Mogollon, Chloride might look like a peaceful little village today. Its population is not even 50 people. Dirt roads sit empty, and old wooden buildings stand as if frozen in time. But in the late 19th century, this place was once one of the busiest mining boom towns in the Black Range Mountains region. Everything began in the 1870s when deposits of silver and lead were discovered in the surrounding hills. Within a short time, thousands of miners rushed in. At its peak, Chloride had more than 3,000 residents, complete with hotels, saloons, stores, and streets that were always busy. When metal prices collapsed and the mines were abandoned in the early 1900s, most residents simply left, leaving the town to slowly become nearly empty. Lake Valley once experienced one of the most dramatic mining booms in American history. It all began in 1878 when miners discovered an extraordinary silver deposit known as the Bridal Chamber. This massive layer of silver ore was so rich that a single chunk was said to be worth tens of thousands of dollars at the time. In a short period, a town grew in the middle of the desert. At its peak, about 4,000 people lived in Lake Valley, complete with hotels, a school, a post office, and rows of saloons busy throughout the night. But that fortune did not last long. In 1895, a group of armed bandits stormed the town, robbing stores and killing several residents. The attack shook the small community deeply. When the mines finally began running out in the early 20th century, the remaining residents gradually left one by one. The next story in New Mexico takes us to a place far more tragic, a town nearly erased from the map after two deadly disasters. Dawson was once a busy coal mining town in the early 20th century. The town was built by a mining company for its workers and their families, and at its peak, more than 9,000 people lived there. Workers' homes, schools, churches, and stores stood along a valley filled with constant mining activity. But beneath that seemingly normal life, danger was always waiting underground. In 1913, a massive explosion inside the coal mine shook Dawson and killed 263 miners, making it one of the worst mining disasters in United States history. The town tried to recover, but tragedy struck again in 1923, when another explosion killed 123 workers. The journey through the creepiest towns in New Mexico brings us to a place with a poetic-sounding name, yet its history is filled with violence. Shakespeare sits in the southern New Mexico desert, not far from the Mexican border. The town began growing in the 1870s after silver was discovered in the surrounding area. Like many mining towns of that era, Shakespeare quickly filled with miners, gamblers, and adventurers searching for quick fortune. But the small town soon gained a dark reputation. Shootouts, robberies, and armed duels were not unusual on its main street. Some well-known outlaws of the Wild West era were even rumored to have passed through here. One of the most famous stories involves the Shakespeare hangings, a series of executions carried out by local residents against criminals in the town. After passing old mining towns like Shakespeare, there is Cuervo, located along the legendary U.S. Route 66. In the middle of the 20th century, this small town became an important stop for drivers traveling across the New Mexico desert. Motels, gas stations, and small restaurants lined the main road, serving travelers making long journeys across the United States. But when Interstate 40 was built in the 1970s and replaced much of Route 66, everything changed dramatically. The traffic that once passed through Cuervo suddenly disappeared. Without visitors and businesses depending on the highway, the town's economy slowly collapsed. Today, Cuervo feels like a place frozen in the past. A crumbling old church, empty houses, and deteriorating stone buildings stand quietly in the middle of wide open grasslands. The next town in New Mexico is an even more extreme example, a place truly abandoned by time. Glenrio sits directly on the border between New Mexico and Texas and was once one of the busiest stops along U.S. Route 66. During the 1940s and 1950s, this small town was filled with motels, restaurants, gas stations, and souvenir shops serving travelers crossing the United States. But Glenrio also had a slightly unusual story. Because the town stood exactly on the line between two states, some businesses, especially bars and gambling spots, operated on the Texas side to take advantage of different laws at the time. Everything changed when Interstate 40 was built in the 1970s. The new highway simply bypassed Glenrio, and the stream of travelers that once kept the town alive suddenly disappeared. Cimarron may look like a quiet mountain village today, with a population of only about 900 people. The town stands along the historic Santa Fe Trail, which in the 19th century served as an important trade route between Missouri and New Mexico. But in the past, Cimarron was known as one of the most dangerous towns in the American West. In the late 1800s, it became the center of a violent conflict known as the Colfax County War, a brutal power struggle between business groups, ranchers, and hired gunmen fighting for control of land and trade in the region. One of the most famous buildings in the town is the St. James Hotel, opened in 1872 and believed to have hosted Wild West figures such as Wyatt Earp and Jesse James. The hotel is also well known for its paranormal stories, with reports of mysterious footsteps and certain rooms said to be haunted. Lincoln may appear today as a quiet historic village with fewer than 100 residents. Its main street is still lined with 19th century buildings that have barely changed for more than 100 years. But in the late 1870s, this small place became the center of a brutal conflict known as the Lincoln County War. This war was a power struggle between two major business factions controlling trade and ranching in the region. The conflict involved shootouts, ambushes, and killings, and it included one of the most famous figures of the Wild West era, Billy the Kid. Several buildings connected to those events still stand today, including the Lincoln County Courthouse, where Billy the Kid was once imprisoned before making his legendary escape in 1881. Magdalena stands on the edge of a wide plain at the base of the San Mateo Mountains. Today, its population is only about 900 people, but in the early 20th century, the town was known as Trail's End. The nickname came from the fact that Magdalena served as the final destination for the largest cattle-driving routes in the American Southwest. Thousands of cattle from surrounding regions were driven for dozens of miles to Magdalena, where they were loaded onto trains of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway and shipped to markets in the east. At that time, the small town was filled with cowboys, traders, and railroad workers, creating an atmosphere that was both lively and rough. But as transportation systems changed and rail lines were no longer the center of trade, activity in Magdalena slowly declined. Many businesses closed, and some old buildings were left empty. From the quiet plains near Magdalena, there is Hillsboro. Located in a small valley at the base of the Black Range Mountains, the town appeared suddenly in 1877 after miners discovered gold in the surrounding area. Like many boom towns of the Wild West, Hillsboro grew incredibly fast. Within just a few years, the town filled with hundreds of miners, saloons, stores, and mining camps scattered along the valley. When gold reserves began to run low in the early 20th century, Hillsboro's growth slowed. Many miners left to search for opportunities elsewhere, leaving the town far smaller than during its peak years. Today, Hillsboro has a population of only about 120 people. Madrid was once a major coal mining town in the early 20th century. During that period, the mining company built nearly the entire town: worker houses, schools, stores, and even entertainment facilities to support thousands of miners and their families. At its peak, Madrid's population reached more than 2,500 people, making it one of the most active mining communities in the region. What made Madrid especially unique was its famous Christmas celebration. In the 1920s and 1930s, the mining company decorated the town with hundreds of thousands of Christmas lights, attracting visitors from across New Mexico who came just to see the spectacular display glowing in the middle of the desert. But when the coal mines closed in the 1950s, almost all the residents left. Madrid nearly became a ghost town, with many empty buildings and silent streets. Only in the 1970s did artists and new residents begin moving in, slowly bringing the town back to life. Raton sits near the border with Colorado, directly along the historic Santa Fe Trail. In the late 19th century, the town grew quickly as a center for coal mining and railroad transportation. Its strategic location made Raton an important stop for traders, miners, and travelers moving through the American Southwest. But life in a mining town was not always peaceful. In its early years, the region often faced mining accidents, labor conflicts, and the violence typical of frontier towns. The coal industry was especially dangerous, with many workers losing their lives deep underground. Today, Raton has a population of about 6,000 residents. Now the journey moves towards southern New Mexico. Columbus may appear to be a quiet desert village today, with a population of around 1,400 people. But on March 9, 1916, this small town suddenly became the focus of international attention when Mexican revolutionary forces led by Pancho Villa launched a surprise attack on the town. The raid killed about 18 Americans and burned several buildings in the community. The event became one of the most famous armed attacks on United States soil in the early 20th century and triggered a major military operation known as the Pancho Villa Expedition, when American troops were sent into Mexico to hunt for Villa. Today, Columbus remains a quiet town in the desert, but the memory of that attack still lingers, especially around Pancho Villa State Park, which was built to commemorate the event. Fort Sumner may look like a quiet small town with a population of about 900 residents. Yet the place holds a dark chapter of history, largely because of its connection to the legendary outlaw Billy the Kid. In 1881, Billy the Kid, already a notorious fugitive at the time, was shot and killed by the famous Sheriff Pat Garrett inside a house in Fort Sumner. The event brought an end to one of the most famous outlaw stories of the Wild West. Not far away lies the old Fort Sumner Cemetery, where Billy the Kid is buried alongside two of his companions. The grave has become one of the town's most visited locations, drawing travelers curious about the life and death of the infamous outlaw. The area also carries an even more tragic history. In the 1860s, Fort Sumner became the site of the Bosque Redondo Reservation, where thousands of Navajo people were forced to live after the event known as the Long Walk of the Navajo.